Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one and only Nitro, right? The one and only Nitro coin. Now, you know me, I've heard a little bit about this coin before, but I am the type of person that likes to wait and observe to see, how things play out. Because the reality is, it's like, yes, of course, you always want to get super, super early in a coin, but that's super high risk. When I see a coin, a developer, and a team and a community be outstanding, that is when it catches my eyes, and that's when I'm looking for a discount. And I think that's exactly where Nitro is at. Okay. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is the official Nitro site. These are the verified listings. So it is still very, very young days. It's only 12 at the current moment, right? 12 at the current moment, but that's exactly why I believe this is going to be, possibly kind of like the next turbo. And even if it's not the next turbo, even if it's 1/10, and even if it's 1/100th of turbo, it is still going to have a very, very big pump. And I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, this beautiful artwork over here. They do have some merchandise. And ladies and gentlemen, these are the tokenomics for Nitro. So we can see 420 billion tokens in circulation, 378 billion tokens, so 90% community fair launch, 5% reserved for founder, which actually fair play to you because most people take 10 or 15%, which is that's still fair. But this 5% is really, really generous. 3% reserved for community marketing slash exchange listings, and 2% reserved for liquidity pool and investors. Right. And we can see the roadmap for Nitro. Phase one complete, develop and deploy Nitro smart contract, design and launch official website, establish and grow social media channels, launch token on Uniswap V2 and initiate fair distribution, build a vibrant community. And we can see there's multiple phases. And the most important thing is that phase four is they eventually plan on getting listed on Binance and Coinbase. Okay. So we can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is the site. Also, I do want to say right away that the founder is doxed.
Hey
Okay,
everyone.
the founder is
So
doxed. And when we go, we can see this is the founder, right? This is him. And this is very important because a lot of coins do not do this. And this is why I'm covering this coin, because I believe this coin has a very, very high future. And it is extremely underrated right now. And you know what? I did see a tweet where people were saying, everyone, I want to take a moment to address the recent sell off and the recent concerns being raised, right? So you can see there's a little bit of a sell off. He just talks about it. And when we see in the chart, yeah, a little bit of a sell off. But that's not concerning at all because the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, right? Coins, they go in cycles. Okay. They go in cycles. We can see that in practically, let's just say the beginning of 2025, right? 2025, we started very young, very small. We went to 4 million market cap. From 4 million market cap, we dropped all the way back down to, let's just say 700K. So it was a pretty big drop, right? Over the next couple of weeks, it was just dropping and dropping, dropping. It dropped roughly 85%. But guess what? But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That caused another rally. It went from 700K market cap all the way to almost 10 million. So here's the deal, people. Coins have to cycle out. It is just the nature of the game. But you know what? I actually like that. When a coin has data, kind of like Nitro, a couple months out there, listed on multiple exchanges, especially when the owner is doxxed, it really, really is very comforting. And there's a lot of opportunity and it doesn't really feel high risk. I'm going to be very honest. Even though it's a meme coin, it doesn't feel like high risk. Here's the thing, people. When you see this type of data, you look for buying opportunities. Okay. And since there's data, since there's work that's been proven, it's proven that two things. Number one, it's not a scam. Number two, the devs, they're not brain dead, okay? Because this type of progress, this type of structure is very, very nice. To get listed on exchanges, right, you need to have some type of money, you need to have some type of brain, you need to have some type of team. So for me, a bunch of green proven flags. That's simple, right? That is very, very simple. And we can see, ladies and gentlemen, we are kind of in a downtrend, which is not bad, which is not bad. I'm going to explain to you, right, where I believe Nitro is going to go. and where I think are going to be the prime buying opportunities. And like I said earlier, if Turbo, for example, goes to 5 billion market cap this cycle, which if you're a Turbo listener, you know that's, very realistic. Yeah, that's practically like a little bit over a 10x, that's a 12, 13x maybe, more or less. Okay, you already know that. You already know that. But imagine if Nitro hit 1/10 of that. That would be 500 million market cap. You're like, wow, that is great. Going from 2 million to 500 million is great. Fantastic. But what if I told you that even if Nitro only hit 1/100th of that, you would still be making insane gains, right? Even if Nitro only went to 50 million market cap, let's say, in the peak of the bull run, if you're buying where I'm looking to be buying, then you would be making a lot of money. Look, there is a lot of structure here, clear support. But you know me, the markets usually like to go below a big support because it's manipulation. And we've seen it here, right? There was some type of support, boom, right? We had one weekly candle go below it, and then we started to recover. So I would expect for Nitro, at least probably to go around 1.3 to 1.4 million market cap. And let's say we did buy around 1.4 million, right? Let's say we did buy to 1.4 million. And let's say Nitro did only go hypothetically to 50 million market cap. Ladies and gentlemen, you would still be looking at roughly 35 to 36 times your money, right? And that is if Turbo went to 5 billion market cap. That is if we hit 1/100th of Turbo's market cap. And what if we hit 1/50th? If we hit 1/50th and we go and get listed on Binance, if we do get listed on Coinbase, look at this. Brothers, look what you're looking at. You're looking at a 70x from here. If we hit 150 million market cap, look what you're looking at. Over 100x, 200 million market cap. You're looking at some insane gain potentials, right? So for me, I am personally a big fan, right? Even if even if it was quote unquote super underwhelming and it just did 1/100th of Turbo's price action, assuming Turbo hits 5 billion, which also is super underwhelming, you would still be looking at almost 40 times your return. Now, for me, that is amazing. That is always going to be amazing because the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, you're not really going to be getting that risk to reward ratio almost anywhere on this market, especially nowadays with the amount of limited time we have. We know the next couple of months are going to be extremely crucial. Okay. And that's just the reality. That is just the reality, right? You can sit out. Personally, I am putting money into Nitro. I'm going to be looking for, like I said, these areas. 1.4 to 1.3 million market cap is going to be my main zone. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited to see how this project does. I believe it is going to do well, right? I believe we're kind of in a very similar stage where we're somewhere over here, where we might have 2 to 3 to 4 more weeks, just a slow sideways, a little bit sell-off movement. But right after we, go right below 1.6 million market cap, I believe we're going to be in reversal territory. But yeah, that is it ultimately, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. We could also look at, this over here. We can see 500K volume in the last 24 hours for a 2 million market cap coin is very, very good. Insane ratio, a 1 to 4 ratio. That is what we love to see. 95% community sentiment with 4.2K votes. So it's not like just 100 votes. It's not just 50 votes, 4.2K. So it's very, very nice. We can see we do have roughly 4.2K holders, right? We did, we peaked a little bit higher a couple of days ago, but losing a couple holders here and there doesn't really scare me. Like what, we lost 5 holders, 10 holders. Doesn't really scare me because the moment there's one green candle, everyone starts to bandwagon anyways. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know what you think of Nitro. Personally, I think this is one of those coins that could definitely be hitting up to 200 million market cap, which would be 100x from this position. But yeah, I'm going to be patient with Nitro. I do believe it is going to go a little bit lower. I'm going to snipe this thing. I do believe this is going to be one of my biggest winners in terms of ratios this cycle. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.